Thank you. And thank
You're
you
very
again
welcome.
Could offer a one-on-one too, Joe?
Yeah.
Obviously, they've already opened themselves up.
Sure. Okay.
If you have a
Yes.
certain, because obviously, you and Kevin have a much
fair.
higher elevation than the rest of us do when it comes to this, but certainly, they're certainly willing to do a one-on-one with you anytime you want, a Zoom call, regular call, whatever you want.
And I can talk cyber for hours. So.
All right. That sounds, no, but
The
this,
good, the bad, and the ugly.
yes, but this is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess, Kevin, we'll leave it to you and Joe to decide how we go forward. Do we sit and review all the different policies internally, and then, list our questions and go back to Karma, whatever you think let you guys figure out what the process.
Right. Okay.
You guys are the insurance.
Thank
Yeah, we are always available. They know how to reach me 1,000,001 ways. So whatever you need, we're here to help.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming out.
thank you.
and
Yeah,
start
thank you.
launching
for
this
having
with
us.
us.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks. Happy Valentine's
All right. Yeah.
Thank you. You too.
All the handsome people you spent your night with, there you go.
Yeah. I'm sure that's.
We rolling, Sandy? Okay. Okay, so moving along with our agenda, we'll now go to the Board of Education 2024-2025 budget request. So we turn it over to the Chair of the Board of Education, Mrs. Colleen Clark, and the others who are here.
Thank you, Chairman Leary. Good evening, everyone. Board members, Mr. Schroeder, Mr. Bose. Thank you for the opportunity to present our recently ratified Board of Ed budget for the 24-25. As many of you are aware, our timing and our process this year was a bit different. We started our process with looking at the administrator's requests and the rationale for the requests, something we had not done in the past. From there, we had the superintendent's budget presented to us at the first budget workshop and not earlier in the month, as we had done in the past. Additionally, we waited to vote on our budget until after the governor announced his budget so that we would know what the impact would be. And unfortunately, this year, it was negative to us. All our deliberations were public, they were thoughtful and respectful, and our end result is a budget of $117,354,089 for an increase of 6.24%. I now turn to Mr. Medancy to share in the details.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I present the Board of Education's proposed operating budget this evening, please understand I am fully conscious of several important points. This is the most significant proposed operating budget the district has brought during my tenure in central office, including my time as assistant superintendent. Although recovering, I understand inflation is still impacting everyone in the community. However, it also affects the costs of goods and materials, as well as purchase services required to run a district. The district has not requested any positions in my prior two budgets, simply presenting level services. In doing so, we have tabled needs that have been present for the past 3 years. Some can no longer wait as they negatively impact areas such as class sizes and course offerings across the district. There comes a point where we can no longer strip the proposed budget to bare bones without advocating for the needs of the district as requested by the administrative team and voiced by teachers in the many meetings I have had with roughly 100 teachers across all schools. I have brought forward no major projects and equipment in either of the last two budgets, instead relying on non-lapsing funds largely accrued during COVID due to federal funds. That option no longer exists. The loss of ARP-ESSER funds is impacting our ability to offset costs associated with contractual increases. However, it should be noted to use those funds has saved us in keeping us competitive during what is becoming a major teacher shortage across the state. ARP-ESSER funds issued early in the pandemic to transition to one-to-one devices across the district have also created another challenge in that replacement cycles are required to maintain this model. The last two budgets have shown the true fiscal responsibility associated with what has been proposed. The first level services closed out with less than 0.1% remaining with no spend down. Last year's level services budget came with the worry that anything less would result in eliminating positions, which occurred with the elimination of 6 middle school positions and a maintenance position. With the elimination of those positions, there was an indication at the time that it was only a temporary solution as enrollment would be recovering, necessitating reinstatement of those positions in 2 years. And we are also tasked with staffing the unfunded mandates of personal finance for all students as a graduation requirement. Knowing this, there will be requests for positions again next year that are not addressed within this operating budget. In closing, I understand that many challenges and difficult decisions lie ahead for this board and all other elected officials moving forward. I look forward to working collaboratively with everyone involved and will answer any questions that may arise to the best of my ability. So with that, I'd like to present to you this evening our proposed budget. And let me just find that. So at the center of everything we do in our school system is our vision of a graduate. This was adopted as a community in 2017. It was elected officials were part of the process, community stakeholders, parents, our teachers, administrators, and students. And this is a very important metric for us. We use it often to determine our progress and what we say we value. You'll see some of that within this presentation. Who we are. I think this is an important story to be told this evening. We know where the schools are. We know what our student population is. But what exists within that population? What I'm sharing tonight wasn't shared with our Board of Education originally, but I felt it was important to note the shifts occurring in Southington and the rationale behind some of the requested personnel within the Board of Education's adopted budget. As you can see, what's most telling is, looking back over 10 years, even with a reduction of 460 students, the demographic is shifting and the needs are increasing. To highlight mostly one TESOL position within this budget, our multilingual learner population has increased from a range of 145 students to 210 students currently in a matter of 4 years. It's doubled. Students identified as emotionally disturbed has increased from 57 students in 2020 to 83 mid-year 2024. That requires significant programming and support. Chronic absenteeism rates have doubled from 6.4% pre-COVID to 12.3% in 2023. That would mean that approximately more than 10%, but if we look at the 6,200 students, approximately 620 students are characterized as chronically absentee or truant during the course of our school year. That's a profound number in terms of the need for social workers, the home visits we do, the assessments we do for students that could be school avoidant for various reasons. Again, looking back 10 years, 3 other categories that are significant. Our free reduced lunch population talks about the socioeconomic status and the needs of our students and families in Southington has increased by roughly 600 students in that 10 years. Our students with disabilities has increased from 783 to 1053, and our students experiencing homelessness in the community has increased exponentially. I know last year we talked quite at length about McKinney-Vento and the costs associated with transportation for students who are declared homeless. Some context relative to state funding and our local share of funding combined. I guess you could include the small federal share we receive as well. But that's where Southington stands compared to surrounding towns. Looking at historical rates of our budget, both what was proposed and what the impact on the mill rate was, we can see we had a significant time of level or no increases in funding. When you compound that with the contractual obligations, the increase in the purchases of services and goods, what you start to see is a potential pattern of underfunding that has led to the large amount requested this year. This is a map for those watching in the community this evening. We find ourselves here tonight at the 214 Board of Ed presentation to the Board of Finance, and then we look ahead to public hearings and workshops that we'll be having with all of you to answer questions. I think some historical context is important. I've eliminated many of these slides. As you know, in years past, we've compared ourselves up, down, and sideways. But our most recent presentation at the December Board of Education meeting was done by the School State Finance Project, and she tried to compare Southington's per pupil expenditure to like communities in size and demographic, and that's what you have in terms of current levels of funding. And that's the local contribution only. That does not include the state and federal. If we look at districts in Hartford County that we're frequently compared to, both in performance and also status and socioeconomic status, demographic, you can see we lag behind there. But an interesting point made by the School State Finance Project is while we lag behind, our grand list is actually higher than all of those communities. When we look at the budget process as a whole, I think it's really important to see the amount of work that went into getting the 6.24% that you have in front of you this evening. There were a lot of conversations had with building administrators and then district administrators and then the central office, as well as the Board of Education, which leads us to our adoption last Thursday and our presentation this evening. Looking at some of the hard numbers, our first pass was 10.87%. As Madam Chair Clark had alluded to at the beginning of this, I think in presenting level services budgets in years past, I did not do a good job at highlighting what had been tabled in getting to that number. And therefore, I don't think the needs were as apparent. And so I wanted to make sure we knew what had been left on the table at each pass of the budget as we tried to bring a reasonable number forward to the community. Some of the major drivers and highlights within this budget. Obviously, we can see what the difference is from the operating budget to the proposed budget fiscal year 25. It's typical. I think those of you who have been on the Board of Finance for some time see salaries, benefits, and purchase services traditionally as the drivers of the education budget. The existing personnel, I think there's some unknowns within this. We have union contracts that are currently under negotiation for fiscal year 25. And then we will also, in July 1st, be going into negotiations with several other bargaining units. And so we know, based on where settlements have been coming in, that we can expect to see some changes to those departments in terms of the overall cost of the staff associated with those bargaining units. Our benefits summary. This is an often had conversation, I know, with the town and the Board of Education in terms of the cost of health insurance and the various strategies we've utilized over the past several years to try and absorb some of those increases in costs, but it still is a major driver of our budget. Another major driver, and I alluded to this with my opening comments, is that we've not proposed any major projects and equipment over the past 2 years. And again, we were able to offset some of those needs and requests with the non-lapsing accounts that we had accrued during COVID. Again, no longer an option for us. And so there we have a new need, if you will, from the past two budgets. These are the actual positions, and I'm sure we'll have questions around those, and I will have data to support, if requested, around some of these needs. What I'd like to highlight within this is that there were about 45 total positions requested from the administration at the outset of our process. And throughout the different iterations of our budget, we started to prioritize in terms of what we considered our highest priority, what was a high priority, and what was simply a priority. And what made this list, what all fell within our highest priority through conversations with the board and our adoption process. Another unfunded mandate that is having an impact on this budget. In years past, when students turned 22 years old, so let's say they turned 22 in August of the academic year, the district was no longer required to provide academic services and transition services to those students. A law passed last year said that regardless of what month they turned 22, we were obligated to provide services for them until the end of that academic year of age 22. Another area, I'm looking at the bottom there. The budget is a net anticipated special education cost grant revenue at 70%. I've sent this to our Board of Education. I've sent the town manager, through the town manager, to all of you today. Some testimony that I'll be providing tomorrow to the Appropriations Committee around the excess cost funding that the town has failed to receive, yet it was approved as part of last year's governor's proposed budget. Student transportation, on a better note, that's not as large of an increase as we had saw it last year for the amount of homelessness we were experiencing. As you can tell from the data, our numbers have decreased, which we see as a positive sign. Magnet school tuitions, this was an advantage to waiting on the governor's proposed budget because our original budget, if we were to base it off of legislation, had a 58% cap on tuition that could be charged to Southington by magnet schools. The governor's proposed budget removes that cap, which would cost the town another $184,000 roughly, and we were able to account for that within this proposed budget. Another area with major projects and equipment that we were asked to identify at the board level is what are some of the costs within this budget that are one-time expenditures. I know at past Board of Finance public hearings, Chairman Larry often cites to other revenue sources that can be used for one-time expenditures if they are available. These would not be reoccurring, and they would not then increase the operating budget request. When we look at overall all of our funding sources, these are the grant totals backed out into operating budget shares, which equals the $117,354,000 that you have in front of you this evening. And then lastly, these are important dates for those in the community that are watching or that will watch this presentation. I would just ask that our Board of Finance that tonight we could finalize what nights our workshops might be with all of you. We've learned of a shift from a Wednesday, typically was a Tuesday, Wednesday workshop evenings to Wednesday, Thursday. So one of the Thursday dates we already have a scheduled Board of Education meeting for, and so we just want to be able to identify what our workshop dates would be. And I'd like to thank the Board of Finance tonight. I will make this presentation available to all of you. I'll send it out to Chairman Larry or Mr. Shota, and that way, if you have any questions or would like to follow up with any of the information presented this evening, we would welcome that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cannellan used to always remind us that we're one town. Even though we know that, it's good to put that emphasis on that. All of the challenges and opportunities we have, we got to attack, for Southington in totality. That's always the challenge of the board here. But thank you for putting all your time and work into it and sharpening your pencil everywhere you could. Now we'll have to see. As far as what night, I'd like to propose maybe workshop 3, only because this board works in two ways. It works from the bottom up, like the need here up, but we also have to look at where's our grand list? What do we have growth? We have to go through the other things and work from the mill rate back. And once we have that figured out, we'd be in a better position to strategize and look more closely. So if nobody has an issue, I'd say workshop 3. Board of Ed,
What date?
which would be, you put out the first two
The fourth, the
next
sixth,
week.
and what was the third one, right?
No, 22.
No, that's just for town.
Yeah, wait.
Those aren't workshops. Those are presentations by
wait,
my
let me go back.
departments, right? Fourth and sixth, your first two workshops, and then you have one more after that.
You got March 6, March 7, March 20, and March 21
Oh, fourth has got to
that
be
we
the public
set
hearing.
aside with the town clerk's office and post.
Right up there. So fourth is the public hearings. That's not a conference room. Yeah. The fourth is the public hearing, so that one is not out. So it's the 6th, 7th, and 27th. So it'd be the 27th, I guess.
We want to wait that far?
No, there's no, you
Thought we
can't-
had a fourth.
That's
we
March
had a fourth
27. That's the night you have, that's by charter.
We
You,
thought
that's your
it's not-
deadline
Isn't there
to
a
adopt.
third one? We don't have a third one?
I thought we put 4 in. Let me
There
go
are,
back
there
to
are,
the
there
calendar.
there are 4. There's 3/6, 3/7, 3/20, and 3/21.
Okay.
21. Okay, yeah, 21.
So it'd be 320.
And I don't have a calendar, so I can't tell you
I'll
what
tell you
dates
in
of
a
the week.
second. Steve, which one's a Thursday?
21st.
The fourth is the public hearing, and then you said the 6th, Jim?
The 6th is Wednesday. That's
6th is a
correct. Well, Oh,
Wednesday?
you know what? We can't do it really.
No, the 6th is the
The
public
6th
hearing.
is a public hearing on the
And the workshop, yeah. So
referendum.
what's the next one? 6th and what?
The 7th,
7th? Is
The
a Thursday.
20th.
Give the first Thursday as your meeting? So why can't? You could do the 7th if that's unless it's too early for you.
Let's do the 7th
7th,
then.
okay.
March 7th.
And we'll
be all right.
push through on the 6th to kind of understand
The
where we
6th will be
are.
the town one. And
Yeah,
and-
then we could noodle on it all and come back on the 20th.
That works.
Could have those on first, the Board of Ed on 7th.
The 7th will be the Board of Ed.
Yeah, Board of Ed on the 7th.
Yep.
Do we typically start those at?
Six 30.
6:30.
That's what's posted, 6:30. We can,
We'll talk about, Joe and I will talk to you about what to do for those workshops afterward.
I'm gonna guess. I'm just gonna guess.
Thank you very much.
We have a small subcommittee, Joe and I are on it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I know in past
I
years we
witnessed that. I
asked
hate
questions
that.
through you to the board. Do we
Yeah.
go directly
We-
to them?
Well, I can't ever stop anyone from, and I don't want to, from going directly, but I think it makes sense if we dust off our question grid. I haven't done that. Have you started it all, or?
We have, in the back of your book, you have all the Q&A.
Do you want me to open the file, like take last year's file and clean it up? How do we want to start?
Whatever you prefer.
All right, let's chat. I'll get it going. What it is.
Some people have Gmail, some people have
Yeah.
OneDrive. So very easily do it for you.
Okay, we could talk about whether we do it in Gmail or something, but the document is basically you put your name in there, you'd put your question, and chances are, if 5 people have the same question, it's only being asked and answered once. And that stops, because years past, multiple people from town council and Board of Finance would ask questions, even multiple people on the Board of Finance would ask the same question. And they'd ask it slightly differently, and Board of Ed would try and respond to the same question 2 different ways, and I think it's just better we work with the grid. But I never want to say to anybody, oh, you can't call directly. If you have a question, you should be able to call directly. But if we use the grid, then everybody gets the benefit. All of our questions, the town council can see, and, stuff could just be asked and answered.
And likewise, you'll see prior to going, when we were going through the
Right.
budget. So there may be questions.
So Jen, if there's a format that you're already using and it looks similar to the one we used, we'll just carry on with it.
Okay,
And you can just tell us where the doc is stored.
sure. The hard
Okay.
Q&A tab back there. Thinking if we start afresh, then you won't have to go all the way to the
Yep.
bottom to get your answer.
It is.
Initial-
I just like to put the name next to the question so we make sure the person who asked it gets the clarity they sought by asking it.
We appreciate answering it only once.
Yeah. And again, if somebody wants to say, I got to come down, I have to talk, I have to dig into something, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And I would say have them,
All right.
cabinet members will work to get together.
Thank you. And let's just chat on how we'll put together some procedures because council is asking too, what's the document, what's the process?
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Thank you.
Good night.
I saved us all a whole bunch of money. Just a box of chocolates and a card, you're all set.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a new mill. I already put it in. So Steve's all set for your wife.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good night, thank you.
Yes, yeah. I did 16.8, so we're good.
You should be fine.
Thank you.
You want some police and fire?
Back to the calendar. Can we just go over those dates again,
Sure,
just to make sure, then we'll get into the regular stuff. So I
absolutely.
have 3/6 and 3/7 as workshops,
Yep,
3/20 and 3/21 as workshops.
that's correct. Because Mark takes a little hiatus during that. That's why there's
It
a,
gives the board members a chance
to digest a
digest
little.
That's fine, that makes, what we wanted to do. And when is the Board of Finance public hearing at DePaulo?
The public hearing is on
That's 3/4.
3/4, Monday 3/4, that's correct. Three six.
3/6 for the, which is going
Roads.
You know what, I can send it all back out to you folks again. I think we sent it out earlier, like in January, or December when we set.
That's just here in our meeting.
I can send them all
Yeah,
back out.
not a big, it's just to talk about the thing we do with the roads where we borrow and
every 4 years.
remodel the roads.
Well, that's required public hearing, and we're going to do that at 6:30 at the start of your workshop. It'll be
Okay.
posted as a special meeting and / public hearing. Those have to be advertised in the newspaper, et cetera, so that's why.
And we'll have to video it too, that part of it, right?
Absolutely.
So then we could even have our workshop in here because of the new seating arrangements. Maybe we could
For that-
workshop
that
here
day
on
we could, yeah.
that week.
Well, I have to see if this room is available,
All right.
because that's what gets, and I understand what the Board of Ed folks were saying about, now you've got some Wednesday, Thursdays. This isn't the only body that uses this room, this chambers, so.
We'll see if we can at least grab it for a portion on 3/6, maybe 6:30 to 7 to get the public hearing for the roads. Then
Yeah.
we can go to the regular workshop where there'll be no cameras and it's just a workshop setting. We'll go to your conference room.
Do you mind if I ask Sandy, is it possible to video a meeting in the finance department conference room back there, like the little kitchenette?
If there's a conflict, try and move
We'll try to move it here, yeah.
Move whoever, if there's
Yeah.
a conflict, we'll move it. 'Cause the only meeting that,
No.
okay,
Okay, thanks for clarifying those, and most important thing we'll talk about later, the pizza. We're good. Right.
A new meal suggestion.
if I talk them into pizza, we're okay.
We get donuts, cookies at the sewer committee meeting.
Okay,
Where are we, Mr. Chairman?
all right, let's carry on and let's run through this. I seek a motion for the approval of the minutes on January 10th.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I second, Wayne.
A second. Any discussion or changes? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Okay, one abstention. Okay, so that, they carry 5-0, or 5-1?
No, he abstained.
Yeah, 501.
501.
The 501. Approval of the minutes of executive session of January 10th. We have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Those minutes really say who went in and what time. There's no minutes from the executive session. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. One abstention? Okay, 501. Okay, we completed the presentation of the insurance. We'll get into the year. How are we on revenue?
Yeah, that's included in the packet that was sent out Friday. And as you can see, I did include Wayne, the very last number there, Kerma equity. That's what that distribution means. We budgeted 50,000, and it's come to our attention, obviously, recently that we're not going to be getting a distribution. So that's a little bit of a negative there on that sheet. Everything else looks like the town. This is a little bit more than last month. It looks like the interest in taxes and prior year taxes, we're down a little bit from last month, but we're doing well.
I'll make it a little bigger.
No,
Specific questions on any of those?
Yeah, not,
Try to-
not a specific question, but these numbers came up on social media, and they came up in relation. Sometimes people look at one number in a multifaceted budget, and they'll pick up on one number out in the public. And this came up with the fire department and some of the litigation that's going on there. But it came out in public, and people will look at one number and say, boy, the town has excess revenue. Or I just want to caution everybody that while we look at these things and individually we see, yes, prior year taxes are up, interest on tax, our building permits and fees are up, interest income is up, yes. But I think it's wise that we have to look at the budget in totality. We just can't look at the revenue without looking at the expenses. We can't, we could look at it, but I don't want somebody to pass judgment on it and say, oh, look at this, we're 1 or 2 million ahead in revenue, we could use that or earmark it for something else. We shouldn't draw those connections too soon, because it's not over till it's over, but it's just us checking the health. So, and a good analogy is a patient goes in, and the patient's blood pressure is excellent, but then other tests come back and show serious problems. You just can't look and say, boy, that patient's healthy. You have to look at the totality, the battery of the assessment to really know. So everybody just should be cautious. We should be very happy we're ahead in revenue, no doubt, but it's one factor among many. I just want to make that clear so we don't get misconstrued.
Thank you for doing that, Mr. Chairman. That's, appreciate it.
But thank you. It's good here in the interest income. I always go back to, the Olds Board of Finance and Kevin and others who said as we started to build our rainy day fund that we ought to invest it. And that's where that whole thing started. And as our rainy day fund built up and up and up and up, and we had excess money, and we looked at our cash flows, and we hired a treasurer, you can go back through all the steps, but we tried to look at the sources and uses of cash, the timing of when we collect revenue and when we spend it, what do we do with the money in between? All of that stuff now, plus a little inflation and higher interest rates, has pushed our interest income above what we budgeted. And it's positive. That's good. Okay, any questions on income from anybody? All right, let's go down to expenses, other than the legal fees.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I didn't include anything in the packet because there's only really one item of material significance that is, causing some little bit of agita on the expense side, and the board is well aware of that. This agenda was actually revised to accommodate a transfer, which you'll see under Roman numeral 13, item 5, which I sent to you after the original agenda was posted. So I sent this all out to you guys and gals on Monday of this week. That's with regards to the Corp Council's budget for legal fees, with regards to the AMR protest of our trying to save money and lives.
It costs money to save money and lives.
So obviously, we're starting off at $600,000.
Yes, I did not adjust the item I sent to you Friday. It was too much adjustment, does. I'm sure it gets confusing when you folks get changes upon changes, so we'll correct it here tonight.
If you could just add to, what, in your contingency roll forward here, your contingency schedule, what it went towards.
Sure, absolutely.
Because now we see it started with 600 and went down 163.5, but we'd have to kind of remember, go back to our notes and say which legal cases.
I could tell you right now that there's 3,500. That was a small item that was left over from the last fiscal year. Oh yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And in the
We'll
future,
just put it on the schedule.
yeah, the rest of them are all that case, the AMR case.
Yeah. Next time, if that's all AMR, just so we could know what we're doing.
Will do.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any questions on expenditures?
Is this? What number?
I'd have to look that up, Wayne. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. I could
I
look that up.
earlier, but I didn't see the money coming out of the contingency fund.
I could give you a call.
$600,000 with no transfer.
No transfers out reflected yet?
No.
There should be,
I
so
know.
I'll check. The number should be
Bills
what's
have
on
been
there.
paid, so yes, the answer
The
to your
bills
question,
have been
it should be
paid.
transferred out, yeah.
But
Uh,
that makes
I
me
will-
wonder what else is in here.
I will get an out,
Can you make sure all the transfers and everything
absolutely.
incorporated? Thank you.
I'll get that all to all board members as well, if you don't.
Well, for the next meeting, I mean, we want to correct it.
We book our journals monthly, though, right?
Yes. I just have to see the date of that report versus the effective date of those
This
transactions.
is on 12/9.
It could be I ran the report wrong too, so I'm going to leave that option out there.
All right. All right, we reviewed contingency. Capital projects we did last month. No other funds being reviewed. We'll go right to subcommittee reports, and remember the emphasis on the financial aspects. Sewer.
The rain event was a all hands on deck, which cost some overtime and some extra personnel services. Before, water is the enemy of the sewer department there. All that rain, we had a lot of seepage into the system, a lot of work to mitigate that. Some actually did escape, if you will, but I think that they did a good job of containing that the best they could. But it did cost some overtime and some wages, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
All that came in and not being billed to anybody, so that's, that's always a
But to note, the stuff that escaped had already been somewhat treated.
Yeah.
Where other towns doesn't get treated at all.
Yeah, I was
We're
talking about
very-
stuff coming into the plant, but you're right, the bypass, we had, I think we went through 2 systems, and I think it was just the last. Absolutely right. Unfortunately, some towns move it straight to.
We didn't get that.
No.
Oh, if anybody has sumps that drain into the septic system, the sewer system, please have your contractors change that so we can avoid as much water as we can into our thank you.
Public Works.
So there was a leak on the roof at the community services. Public Works approved a flat rate roof repair by Millenniums in the amount adding a 10% contingency, which yields $2,941. Roxy, Fire Company 2 and 5, Garage and Community Services, completed a major renovation of highway park.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Open space, anything doing? And maybe for the public that's.
It's good things, so.
But for the public that's watching, people have also asked, why are some things done in private? The town has to protect its interest in what it's buying, what it's willing to pay. That's all confidential, and the town acting in its best interest. If we were to share all that information publicly, we would tip our hand and we wouldn't be negotiating in good faith for the taxpayers. So therefore, even we don't know sometimes what's going on with open space, and we rely on the committee to work in executive session and then make a proposal. So,
Chairman, that's absolutely.
so we'll wait to see what they're doing, but I think this board understands open space and Just don't know which piece. Doesn't matter to us specifically. Okay, self-insurance, did we get an updated report?
Sure, yeah, a
Yeah,
couple
here's the
things.
thing.
So
I
on
see it.
self-insurance, it was a positive January. It was about $600,000 under budget. So now for the year, through 7 out of the 12 months, we're about $200,000 over budget. Generally, we would expect the second half of the year to run higher than the first half. We are budgeted higher in the second half as well. So, like always, we've had some pretty wild swings. I think there's been, out of the 7 months this year, we've been either above or below budget by $350,000 or more, which really again just speaks to the fact that the results can be significantly under or over budget. But for the year, we're again a couple $100,000 over. All right, so that's where we stand. So we'll obviously, we'll watch that every month as it comes in. The second part I would say is that, the approved budget for this fiscal year is just under 29 points, or for the upcoming fiscal year, I'm sorry, it's just under 29.7 million. We did have an updated forecast from our consultant at the last self-insurance committee meeting that was about $800,000 higher than the prior projection. The projection from the prior meeting is what was set at the budget. That was that number that was 29.66. The committee did not take any action. The committee has up until March to take action on a projected number for the fiscal year, and then if asked by the town council after that point in time. The one thing that I would say, or really probably two things that I would say is, so the updated projection from the consultant is 30.5 million. Our budget this year is 27.5 million, but those aren't apples to apples numbers because the budget this year had included a slight reduction in addition to use of reserve funds for this year. So if we look back at the projection from last year, it was just a little bit over 29 million. And I say that only to say the apples to apples comparison from the consultant is we're up about 5%, which actually is probably not surprising to anybody when it comes to health insurance. And, from our consultant standpoint, we'd fare pretty well as a town when compared to other municipalities. There are some that are significantly worse than up 5% on an apples to apples basis. So the last thing I'll say is really what a lot of this will come down to is the self-insurance committee will look at the updated projections to decide whether to take action or not. The self-insurance committee will also look at whether reserve funds are going to be used, and then it will really ultimately it'll fall on this board and then ultimately town council if we wanted to amend in any way any recommendation that comes out of the self-insurance committee for use of reserve funds, and those are things we can talk about during our workshops. But I wanted to make the point that on an apples to apples basis, our health insurance costs are only up about 5%. We need to be very careful with how we describe that number. That is apples to apples. But it's just to say that we're actually faring kind of relatively well or really on par with other municipalities.
Is it usage or is it cost or a combination of both, like a mix?
It's going to be a mix, yeah. I mean, I don't have the breakdown in terms
But
of
it's more
is it
people
costing more, is it
using
more
and the
usage?
cost went
Yeah,
up.
it's going to be a mix. I can't kind of speak into really kind of what the breakdown would be, but just to say that again, from an overall standpoint, we're not outside the bounds of what would be considered reasonable by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay. Questions? Thank you. Economic strike?
That's me again. Aggressively seeking to I-1 areas that businesses can move into. Find spots to lead to an increase in tax base and get more out the services of
Thank you. Any questions on economic strike? Okay, our subcommittee reports, investment, I think we saw, in the income. Anybody go to the fire commission meetings?
No.
I did say, and I committed to, and I will do it, I'll set up a meeting with the fire leadership. That would be whoever from the Board of Fire Commissioners and from the administration of the fire department, for us to go to the fire department and have meetings. When we did it with the police department, the team assembled by the police department met, and 3 of us went into session 1 and 3 of us went into session 2. We just consciously wanted to avoid having a quorum in there, or we have a de facto Board of Finance meeting, which is not the intent. It's just the intent to learn about what police do and how they police our town. So that was a little strategy there that worked well for us to get better informed. We'll do something similar at fire, and I will set it up. So we'll get that going. Stay tuned for an email. Anybody go to any other boards or anything they want to raise? Okay. Let's go to public communications. Anybody from the public want to speak? Quiet, we have quiet public. Okay, but again, anybody from the public wants to come down, we're available here. We have it, it's always on the agenda at every public meeting that the public can come up and is encouraged to come up and address us on a particular issue.
Or just shoot us an email.
Yeah, an email, a phone call. Our numbers are all out there. Just go to Southington, Town of Southington, Board of Finance. You'll see all of our names, addresses, emails. But we encourage people to interact with us or to reach out. So any board communication, member to member.
Well, in that,
But Mr. Stamper,
in that
then Mr.
theme,
Brown.
though, of sharing, I appreciate the fire department and the police department sharing the items that we passed in executive session. Needed executive authorization. Want to be forthcoming with our taxpayers to let them know how their money is being spent. And I
Kevin?
No, I was going to say, the last time I went on the town website and looked up the Board of Finance members, I think they had Wayne as a Democrat. You want to double check?
Wayne has something to reveal tonight.
We'll
Wayne?
get right on it.
That's at the end.
Number one order of business for the town.
Sandy, we'll check.
We'll take a
Kathy
look,
tomorrow.
right?
Yeah.
That's on Kathy's
I
office.
think that's a great idea, Mr. Chairman, with the volume the fire department does. No one really knows. All they hear is the siren. Oh, no. We get it out there with different departments.
Set
what
it up.
they got to do, that'll be great.
And usually it's a few commissioners, the fire leadership, and we can go in and ask any question, and they keep us informed.
So that'll be above and beyond the presentation giving to us.
Or when we did it, sometimes confidential information comes up. Sometimes somebody will see something on a map and say, what's that? And or they tell us about how they handle a call or what certain things mean to the town, where certain costs are being applied. I just want the conversation to not be a guarded conversation and let us have a chance to ask questions. So I will set up, I already talked to the fire chief about it, just have to set it up.
It's still there.
Sure.
No, I'm set.
I just wanted
Do you want to take a motion on chair and vice chair now? Democrat?
yeah, there you go.
Do you want me to move my seat?
Staged a coup without even knowing.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to just to thank the town manager and the finance director for the coordinating the insurance presentation tonight and for all the packet of information that was shared. Very helpful. I think, as the chair said, Mr. Bedoyan and I can review and come back with any additional questions. But the packet of information and the questions that were answered were very helpful. So thank you.
And just a note that our videography equipment was not working at that time, so we did have an insurance presentation and more to come. It'll all be, of course, it was done in a public meeting, it just wasn't captured. It's captured in the minutes, the written minutes, but it's not captured in the video. But the next time we take up this subject, we'll be sure that the video is working. Okay, we want to go down and quickly go through our items for administrative business. I have a bunch of appropriations in the consent agenda. Once again, The consent agenda is money we already received, and all we're doing is appropriating it back to the line item where it could be spent. Okay? So I'm going to read them off, and then I'll ask for a motion on them all. Appropriation, $200, Special Revenue Building Department insurance losses. Appropriation, $28,192, Fire Department insurance losses. Appropriation, $787, Special Revenue Police K-9 program supplies. Appropriation, $25,000 even, Youth Services overtime for the Drug-Free Community Grant. $6,533, the General Fund, Youth Services for FICA,
That's what we pay.
in
the federal
addition to
government.
the overtime, it's the benefits for the Drug-Free Community Grant, the fringe benefits. That's the word I was searching for. At number 5 is $300 for the Capital Project Fund for a memorial bench donation. And the last one is $500 to the General Fund for Calendar House overtime. Do I have a motion to approve all of them as written in the agenda?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as a group.
A second?
Even though
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
$500.
I
Yep,
still don't, I vote,
gotcha.
Yeah, I was going to say, this doesn't.
Who
affect
who
the
has a
budget.
second?
A second.
All right, Mrs. Mazzarella seconded it.
I'm sorry,
Um,
it's my goof.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed
I abstain.
and abstain. 501, Mr. Pocock abstains because he works at the Calendar House. Usually we pull that item out.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
It was a check that we got in for the rental of the Calendar House. It really has nothing to do with Mr. Pocock.
Yeah, but he always abstains.
But he does abstain, and I normally put it on the regular agenda. I'm sorry, Ed, I
Yeah.
forgot this time.
So I think you're in favor of all the items, just abstain on that because of any perceived conflict. Okay, perfect. Administrative business, we have 5 items here. The first one, a department transfer, $15,000, the general fund, police, other professional services. I gotta find the memos. Yep.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? It's officers out on long-term related injuries during the year and workers' comp. Okay, any discussion? All those, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second,
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Number 1 carries 6-0. Number 2 is a transfer of $50,000, highway parks, equipment maintenance. Yep.
I make a motion to,
Second it.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay.
I see the
Yeah.
money's coming from the money saved in the leaf collection. Very,
I wanted to get back to that after you vote, but
Okay.
if you don't mind me speaking during your vote, it really is a long-term plan, which this board was very much instrumental in, is that we bring more equipment, town-owned equipment, and therefore, when we do that, we have less and less third parties. So we've been saving money over the years, and we're always going to have extra people, which is a separate bid that we do. But is our goal over the next 2 or 3 years that we'll be self-sufficient on leaf pickup from a machine.
Yeah, and we have and more to maintain, and here we are.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Motion carries 6-0. Number 3 is a departmental transfer for $565 for planning and zoning for vehicle maintenance.
I'll make a motion to approve.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Next one, $2,000 general fund, planning and zoning, advertising. Motion and a second, any discussion?
So the department's been busy, I guess, with playing.
That's what they have to do, and there's always a, if you don't mind me speaking.
Yeah, no, it's okay, it's fine, as long as we,
it's been challenged every year at the state legislature. There's a statute that says what everything has to be advertised. In today's world, newspapers are at a different classification than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's raised every year that we get municipalities looking for relief from the requirements we have to do this because it's a lot of money. That has not passed over the last bunch of, but it's not, once again, it's in the legislation for this.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. And the last one is a bigger one, so we'll do a voice vote when it comes to it. It's a transfer from contingency of $70,000 for the Corporation Council for legal fees. If you can give us a brief on it, and then we'll take we'll get a motion in a second.
Briefly, this is a continuing action where the town of Southington went out for an RFP. Ambulance committee, then it went to the recommendations that we go with carrier from HHC. The way it works is that we then have to apply to the State of Connecticut Department of Health. Our current vendor, AMR, has a right to challenge that, and that's what they're currently doing. Being told that although we're still in the tunnel, there's a light at the end of the fence side of this is over, and then we'd have to sit and wait for a decision by the Department of Health.
Make a motion to.
They don't originally care. What happens is...
Oh, I thought we had to go to them for approval.
That's where we're at right now. We have to apply. Once the town does an RFP, we have to figure out, obviously, which council they chose, HHC. Then we apply to the Department of Health. We cannot change the contract until they give us permission to do that. We'd hoped to do it from July 1st of last year. We've been actually in discussions and litigation from that period of time. The testimony is over. Then, of course, briefs have to be filed by the attorneys. Then there's a time period for which the hearing officer can render an opinion. So I don't expect anything.
Let me get a motion, then we'll go to more discussion. I think Mrs. Mazzarella made a motion to approve?
Yes.
And
second.
seconded by Mr. Bedoin. Now we'll go back to discussion.
I don't expect anything in the near term for a decision. I think although we've picked them to be our perspective, it still has to be okayed by the Department of Health.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Okay, thank you.
during discussion, I find it wrong that we can't be relied upon to pick our own service provider for ambulances, that it then has to go to a higher committee and we have to bring attorneys in and spend tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money so that we can make a decision on which ambulance we think we should use. I think it's all flawed. I'm going to certainly vote yes for it, but because I think in the end game is what we want. This is just a hell of a way to get there by expending all these fees when any other RFP, we look for a qualified bidder, we look at the service, we go out to bid, and we pick, the qualified bidder with the most reasonable price. And that's not the case here. And I don't quite understand it, but we'll just have to say that. Any more discussion? Okay, we're going to do not a voice vote, a roll call vote on this one.
Sure. Mr. Pocock,
Yes.
Mr. Bowdoin,
Yes.
Ms. Mazzarella,
Yes.
Mr. Stanforth,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lebenik,
Yes.
Chair Leary.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Carries
unanimously.
6-0. And the town manager moved $400 in the finance arm for overtime and $550 in the tax collection department for a conference. Any other business to come before the board? Okay, we'll look for our favorite motion at 7:53.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 7:53.